Most students or office workers are familiar with being stuck attending classes or seminars or watching modules every day. The only time to relax for most people is a break, but even this often consists of mind stimulation with browsing social media or watching videos. After a few minutes or hours of these breaks, people often begin studying or working again only to find it difficult to remember what they had looked at earlier. This common experience poses the question, what can be done in these breaks to increase your attention span and retain information for school and work? Let's look at what researchers have suggested for university students but can be applicable to many different people.
Previous studies conducted in school-aged children have shown the benefits of exercise breaks in learning the content and paying attention, but older students and adults have different, less noticeable off-task behaviors such as mind-wandering or shifting of attention from primary tasks. A research study at McMaster University was conducted to determine the impact of taking exercise breaks between lecture content and for university students. Dr. Jennifer Hines, an associate professor in kinesiology and associate director of the Physical Activity Center of Excellence at McMaster University, was the main investigator. Dr. Hines directs the NeuroFit Lab at McMaster University, which uses research to examine the impact of exercise on mental, cognitive health, and physical health in young adults, older adults, and individuals with Alzheimer's disease.
For this research study, we examined whether taking short exercise breaks during an online university lecture would benefit students' attention and learning. We hypothesized that compared to the no breaks or non-exercise breaks group, the exercise breaks group would be more alert and therefore better able to sustain their focus throughout the lecture for more durable learning.
This study included 75 first-year undergraduate students enrolled in the Introductory Psychology course at McMaster University. All participants watched a 50-minute computer-based lecture on the topic of form perception and no previous exposure to the content. The physical activity level of the participants was first determined based on the time spent on moderate to vigorous physical activity per week. Participants were then randomly assigned into one of the three groups: the exercise group, the non-exercise group with breaks, or the group with no breaks at all. The 15-minute lecture was divided into three parts that consisted of roughly 17 minutes each, with a 5-minute break for the exercise and non-exercise group after each part. In the 5-minute breaks, the exercise group with 26 participants performed calisthenic exercises, which were basically jumping jacks, heel taps, high knees, split jumps, and hamstring kickers for 50 seconds each. The non-exercise group with 23 participants played the visual matching computer game Bejeweled to control for arousal between the two groups. Why was this activity selected? Other non-exercise breaks such as social media and internet browsing were not included from the different arousal effects and levels of enjoyment between participants. There were 4 measures that were assessed in total: arousal, attention, learning, and perception. Arousal was measured with the carotid artery pulse. Carotid arteries are found on the side of the windpipe, and the pulse is the number of heartbeats counted in that position in 1 minute. The heart rate was measured before the lecture started for all the groups and after each break for the exercise and non-exercise groups. Attention was measured through a mind-wandering question, where participants selected if they were on task or mind-wandering at the end of each lecture part for the group with breaks or similar time point in the lecture for the groups with no breaks. A baseline mind-wandering question was asked after lecture part 1 that was compared with the same question after part 2 and 3 of the lecture after breaks. Learning was assessed after the third part of the lecture for all groups with a 20-minute, 30 multiple choice question test. The pulse was measured right after the test. Another test with similar difficulty in content was repeated 48 hours later. Perception was measured through a questionnaire that assessed the difficulty, engagement, interest, content understanding, and narrator clarity of the lecture on a 7-item scale.
Results first confirmed that each group was comprised of individuals with similar levels of physical activity. In terms of arousal, the group with the exercise break reported significantly increased arousal than the groups with the non-exercise breaks and no breaks. This was indicated from an increased heart rate for the participants in the exercise breaks to approximately 70% of the normal maximum heart rate for the age. This higher heart rate continued after each break into the learning tests and questionnaires. As for the attention measure, the exercise breaks promoted greater on-task attention as measured with the mind-wandering questions as compared to the other groups. Upon analysis of time points, there was no group difference after the first mind-wandering questions before any breaks. The group difference started in the second mind-wandering question after one break had occurred. Exercise breaks were found to only be associated with attention near the end of the lecture. As for the learning measure, better performance on both the immediate and delayed assessments was noted for the exercise break group in comparison to the non-exercise break and no breaks group. However, both attention and learning had no large correlations. In terms of the perception measure, the exercise break group significantly perceived the narrator to be clearer than the no break group and had better understanding than both the non-exercise and no break groups. However, there was no large difference with respect to the perceived difficulty, interest, or engagement. So, how exactly does exercise work? Exercise might be beneficial for attention and learning from increased arousal with the release of stress hormones. Exercise breaks can increase the stress hormone epinephrine, commonly referred to as adrenaline, that may improve on-task attention. The activation of the two parts of the brain, the hypothalamus and the pituitary gland, with the stimulation of the adrenal cortex, which is a part of the kidney, that might increase the levels of the hormone cortisol, commonly the body's main stress hormone, which can improve memory.
How might exercise breaks work to improve learning? Well, prolonged sitting reduces brain blood flow, which these short exercise breaks can counteract. When the prefrontal cortex of the brain, the one up front, is bathed in oxygenated blood, it can perform its suite of executive functions with precision, helping us to stay focused and learn. Therefore, students should be encouraged to break up their sitting time with short, frequent movement breaks.
So what do these results mean for the future of education? This is the first study to determine the benefits of exercise on learning in older university students. However, some limitations of this study are response and sampling bias. Firstly, the exercise routine in the exercise group was led by an experimenter. This prevented the study from being blinded, which promotes response bias. Future studies should provide links to external exercise videos to guide the participants. Another flaw in the study is that there's a different number of participants across the various groups, which is known as the sampling bias. In the future, studies should even out the number of participants in each group. Further studies can examine whether a shift from a few computer scene can sustain attention and improve learning beyond exercise. Another study idea would be to examine the differences between digital note-taking and handwritten note-taking on the retention of information in older university students. Regardless, since lectures are the primary method of instruction, they can be broken into 30-minute intervals, during which students can implement HIIT workouts to better increase the retention of information and learning.